Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. Now I have to be careful here, because there is a trap. Eclecticism is not the same thing as being lazy. It is not the same thing as throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. There is a version of eclecticism that critics call the mishmash or quackery. This happens when a teacher doesn't actually understand the theories they are using. They just grab whatever is trendy on Pinterest or Teachers Pay Teachers. They use a behaviorist reward system 1 minute. Then switch to a constructivist inquiry project the next, but they do it without rhyme or reason. The result is confusion. Imagine a parent raising a child. On Monday, the parent is a strict authoritarian, essentialist. Do it because I said so. On Tuesday, the parent is a free spirit hippie, progressivist. Do whatever feels right to you, man. On Wednesday, the parent bribes the kid with candy, behaviorist. That child is going to be a nervous wreck. They won't know the rules. They won't feel safe. The same thing happens in a classroom. If you swing wildly between I am the boss and you are the boss, the students get whiplash. Intentional eclecticism is different. It requires a super theory, a guiding logic that tells you when to use which tool. The best eclectic teachers usually organize their choices based on two things. 1. The complexity of the learning. Is the task simple and factual, like spelling words? Use behaviorism, essentialism. Drill it, reward it, get it done. Is the task complex and conceptual, like understanding the theme of a novel? Use constructivism, progressivism. Discuss it, explore it, let them argue. 2. The stage of the learner. Is the student a novice? They know nothing about this topic. They probably need structure. They need direct instruction. Is the student an expert? They have the basics down. Now they need freedom. They need inquiry. This is the secret sauce. It's not a random mix. It's a strategic shift based on the cognitive science of how people actually learn. To really see this, let's zoom in. Let's look at Mrs. Miller's 8th grade English class. It is a 90-minute block. Watch how she shifts gears. 8 a.m. to 8:15 a.m. The humanists start. The bell rings. Mrs. Miller doesn't start teaching immediately. She stands at the door and greets every kid by name. She notices David looks tired and asks if he's okay. Inside, they do a quick rose and thorn activity where 3 students share a highlight and a lowlight of their week. Why? Because she knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If they don't feel safe and seen, they won't learn. 8:15 a.m. to 8:35 a.m., the essentialist drill. Okay, folks, Mrs. Miller says, clapping her hands. The tone changes. It is business time. Notebooks out. Grammar boot camp. We are looking at semicolon usage today. She puts a rule on the board. She explains it clearly. She doesn't ask them to discover the rule. She tells them. Then they do 10 practice sentences, rapid fire, right or wrong. Why? Because grammar is a convention. You need to know the rules before you can break them. Direct instruction is the most efficient way to get this data into their heads. Essentialism. 8:35 a.m. to 9 a.m. The constructivist discussion. Nice work on the drills, she says. Now, close your notebooks and open your copies of The Giver. She moves from the front of the room to the side. She throws out a question. In the book, they got rid of pain, but they also lost color. Is that a fair trade? Would you give up color to never feel pain again? Silence. Then an argument breaks out. Mrs. Miller doesn't give the answer. She pushes back. Why do you say that, Sarah? Text evidence, please, Marcus. The students are building their own understanding of the ethical dilemma. Why? Because literature is about meaning. You can't memorize the meaning of a book. You have to construct it through social interaction. Social reconstructionism, constructivism. 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. The Progressive Project. Great discussion. Now we're going to apply this. She hands out art supplies. I want you to create a propaganda poster for the community in the book. Try to convince someone that sameness is good. The room gets noisy. Kids are working together. Mrs. Miller is walking around troubleshooting. Why? Because learning needs to be active. Creating something cements the knowledge. Progressivism. The closing. As they leave, Mrs. Miller reminds them, If you turn in your draft by Friday, you get 5 bonus points. Why? A little behaviorist nudge to beat procrastination never hurts. In 90 minutes, Mrs. Miller used 4 different philosophies. She wasn't confused. She was conducting a symphony. She used the right tool for the right moment. This brings us to the hardest part of being an eclectic educator. It is exhausting. If you are a pure essentialist, your job is easy. Follow the textbook. If you are a pure progressive, your job is easy. Follow the child's interest. But if you are an eclectic, you have to make 1,000 decisions a day. You are constantly reading the room. You are constantly asking, is this working? Should I switch gears? They look bored. Do I need a project? They look confused. Do I need a lecture? This relies on something we call professional judgment. In America, we have a bad habit of trying to teacher-proof our schools. We buy scripted curriculums that tell the teacher exactly what to say on day 4, minute 12. These curriculums are anti-eclectic. They assume the teacher is an idiot who can't be trusted to choose the right tool. Eclecticism argues that teaching is a profession, like medicine. A doctor doesn't treat every patient with aspirin. They diagnose. They look at the symptoms. Sometimes they prescribe rest, do nothing. Sometimes they prescribe surgery, radical intervention. We trust the doctor to use their judgment to pick from the vast array of medical knowledge. Eclecticism demands the same respect for teachers. It assumes the teacher is smart enough to know when to be a drill sergeant and when to be a nurturer. It assumes that the teacher, who actually knows the names of the kids in the room, has better data than the politician in the state capitol who wrote the curriculum. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you why people hate this approach, and some people really do hate it. Intellectuals and academics usually despise eclecticism. They call it intellectual sloppiness. They argue that these philosophies contradict each other. For example, behaviorism says, control the student from the outside, rewards punishments. Existentialism says, the student must be free to choose from the inside. You cannot logically believe both of these things at the same time. If you use both in your classroom, critics say you are being a hypocrite. You are sending mixed messages. You are teaching students that freedom is important, but then bribing them with candy. You are teaching them to think critically, but then forcing them to memorize facts without question. Critics argue that an eclectic education is a mile wide and an inch deep. It lacks a moral core. A school that is fully Montessori, progressive, has a clear soul. A school that is a classical academy, essentialist, has a clear soul. An eclectic school can feel like a strip mall, a little bit of everything, but no real identity. This is a valid criticism. We have all been in those classrooms that feel schizophrenic. The teacher is trying to do everything and ends up doing nothing well. They try to be the strict disciplinarian and the best friend, and they end up losing control of the class. However, despite the critics, eclecticism remains the dominant force in American education. Why? Because it survives the crash test of reality. We live in a society that wants contradictory things from its schools. We want our kids to be creative innovators, progressive. But we also want them to score high on standardized math tests, essentialist. We want them to be independent thinkers, existentialism. But we also want them to behave and stand in a straight line, behaviorism. We want them to question authority, reconstructionism. But we also want them to respect tradition, perennialism. The school is the place where all these conflicting desires meet. If a teacher picks only one side, they will fail to meet half of society's expectations. If they only focus on creativity, the parents will scream about test scores. If they only focus on test scores, the parents will scream that their kids are stressed-out robots. Eclecticism is the only way to survive the crossfire. But more than that, it is the only approach that honors the complexity of the human mind. The eclectic teacher isn't just a survivor, they are an artist. Think about a carpenter. You would never say, I am a hammer carpenter. I refuse to use screwdrivers because I believe in the philosophy of the hammer. That would be ridiculous. You use the hammer for the nails. You use the screwdriver for the screws. You use the saw for the wood. The tool doesn't define you. The house you are building defines you. In education, the house is the child. The goal is to build a capable, kind, literate, thinking human being. Sometimes that child needs a hug. Sometimes they need a kick in the pants. Sometimes they need to run free in the woods. Sometimes they need to sit down and shut up and learn their times tables. The eclectic teacher knows that being authentic doesn't mean sticking to one rigid theory written by a dead guy in the 1930s. It means looking into the eyes of the kid in front of you and asking, "What do you need right now? And which tool in my box is going to help you get it?" That is not sloppy. That is not lazy. That is the highest form of teaching there is.